Commander Saracen pressed her palm against the reinforcement glass of Bunker 7's observation deck and watched the last wisps of Earth's atmosphere spiral upward into massive harvesting ships. The alien vessels hung like metallic locusts above the planet's surface, their extraction beams creating tornadoes of stolen air that disappeared into their cargo holds. Atmospheric pressure down to 12%, reported Lieutenant Martinez from a station. We've got maybe 18 hours before the surface becomes completely uninhabitable. Sarah's jaw tightened. 3 weeks ago, the Kithra Empire had arrived without warning. Their demands simple and absolute. Surrender Earth's atmosphere for their industrial expansion or face total annihilation. When humanity's leaders refused, the aliens had simply begun taking what they wanted anyway. Earth's military had thrown everything at the invaders. Nuclear missiles, orbital defense platforms, even ramming attacks with civilian spacecraft. Nothing had penetrated their energy shields. Ma'am, called Specialist Rodriguez from the communications array, we're getting reports from bunkers worldwide. The Sahara facility lost life support an hour ago. Tokyo went dark 30 minutes later. Sarah closed her eyes. 2 billion people had made it into the emergency bunkers when the harvesting began. Now they were dying in underground tombs while the sky above them disappeared into alien cargo holds. A tremor shook the bunker, different from the usual vibrations caused by the atmosphere extractors. This came from below, deep beneath the Earth's crust. The lights flickered, and several monitors sparked with electrical interference. What was that? Sarah demanded. Martinez checked his instruments, frowning. Seismic activity, but it's not tectonic. The epicenter readings are impossible. It's like something massive just shifted position about 20 miles underground. Another tremor, stronger this time. The bunker's emergency lighting activated as the main power grid fluctuated. Through the observation window, Sarah saw something that made her heart race. The Kithra harvesting ships had stopped their extraction beams. Their formation, which had remained perfectly ordered for weeks, was breaking apart as individual vessels moved into what looked like defensive positions. "They're scared," she whispered. "Ma'am." Martinez looked up from his console. "The Kithra, look at their flight pattern. They're not extracting anymore. They're preparing for a fight." High above, alien communication arrays blazed with urgent transmissions. The massive mothership that had orchestrated the atmospheric theft was rotating slowly, bringing its weapon systems online. But they weren't pointed at Earth's surface. They were aimed at the planet itself, as if something inside it had become a threat. A new sound filled the bunker, a deep, resonant hum that seemed to come from the very walls around them. The frequency was so low it was felt more than heard, vibrating their bones and making their teeth ache. On the surface, through the thinning atmosphere, strange lights began to appear. They weren't auroras or atmospheric phenomena. These lights came from below, seeping up through cracks in the Earth's crust that hadn't existed moments before. "Radiation levels are spiking," Rodriguez called out, his voice tight with fear. "But it's not nuclear radiation. This is something else entirely." The lights grew brighter, and Sarah realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. Massive fissures were opening across the planet's surface, glowing with ethereal blue-white radiance that seemed to pulse with intelligent purpose. The cracks spread like a vast network, connecting continents and revealing pathways that had been hidden beneath solid rock for eons. "Recording everything," Martinez said, his scientific training overriding his terror. "Whatever's happening, someone needs to document it." Through the observation window, they watched the first of the beings emerge. They rose from the glowing fissures like living mountains, their bodies composed of crystalline structures that caught and refracted the strange light. Each entity stood hundreds of feet tall, their forms geometric yet somehow organic, as if someone had taught mathematics to dream. The Kithra ships opened fire immediately, their energy weapons painting the sky with deadly light. But when their beams struck the crystal beings, something extraordinary happened. Instead of destroying them, the energy was absorbed, channeled through their crystalline bodies, and redirected back at the attacking vessels with twice the intensity. "They're using the Kithra's own weapons against them," Sarah breathed. 3 alien ships exploded in brilliant fireballs, their debris raining down on the planet's surface. The remaining vessels retreated higher into orbit, their extraction complete forgotten as survival became their only priority. But the crystal beings weren't pursuing the fleeing ships. Instead, they turned their attention to the planet below, and Sarah felt their gaze like a physical weight. Through the bunker's sensors, she detected communication signals unlike anything in human experience, patterns of electromagnetic radiation that seemed to carry meaning beyond mere data. "They're scanning us," Rodriguez reported. "Every bunker, every survivor. It's like they're taking inventory." Sarah's blood chilled. Earth had traded one set of invaders for another, and these new entities possessed power that made the Kithra look like children with toy weapons. As the crystal beings began to move across the surface with purpose and intelligence, she realized humanity's fight for survival had only just begun. Dr. Elena Vasquez had spent her career studying ancient geological formations, but nothing had prepared her for what she was witnessing through the deep Earth monitors in Bunker 12. The crystal beings weren't invaders. They were natives, and they had been waiting. "These formations," she whispered to her research team, pulling up holographic displays of the planet's subsurface structure. "Look at the dating. These crystal networks have been growing beneath our feet for over 65 million years." The revelation hit her like a physical blow. 65 million years ago, the end of the Cretaceous period, when the dinosaurs died and mammals inherited the Earth. But what if the extinction event hadn't been caused by an asteroid? What if something else had been responsible? Through the bunker's communication system, reports poured in from surviving facilities worldwide. The crystal beings moved with deliberate purpose across Earth's surface, their towering forms striding through the thin atmosphere as if it posed no obstacle. Where they walked, the planet itself responded, healing the scars left by human civilization with disturbing efficiency. "Ma'am," called her assistant, Dr. Park, "we're receiving a transmission. It's not from any human source." The speaker's crackle was static, then clear to reveal something impossible. A voice speaking perfect English, though the tones carried harmonics no human throat could produce. "We greet the small ones who burrow beneath our world," the voice said. "We are the architects of this place, returned from our long sleep. Your atmosphere thieves have awakened us ahead of schedule." Elena grabbed the microphone with trembling hands. "This is Dr. Elena Vasquez, representing the human survivors. Who are you? What do you want? We are what you might call the first Earth. Before your oxygen-breathing kind poison our domain with your waste gases, we shaped this world according to our design. Your industrial age merely accelerated what was already inevitable, the return of conditions suitable for our awakening." The truth crashed over Elena like a tsunami. The crystal beings weren't aliens at all. They were Earth's original dominant species, driven into hibernation millions of years ago when oxygen levels rose too high for their crystalline biology to function efficiently. They had been waiting beneath the surface, growing their networks, preparing for the day when atmospheric conditions would once again favor their existence. "The atmosphere," Elena whispered. "You needed it gone. The Kithra harvest served our purposes admirably, though they remain unaware of this service. Your kind faces a choice now, small ones. You may join us in reshaping this world to its proper form, or you may continue your futile resistance and share the fate of the great lizards who came before you." Through the monitors, Elena watched one of the crystal beings approach a Kithra harvesting installation the aliens had abandoned during their retreat. Instead of destroying it, the entity interfaced with the machinery directly, crystalline tendrils extending from its body to merge with alien technology. The equipment began to glow with the same ethereal light that emanated from the beings themselves. "They're not just awake," Dr. Park observed, his voice filled with scientific wonder and terror. "They're adapting, learning. That harvesting equipment is being repurposed." Elena's blood ran cold as she understood what was happening. The Kithra had stolen Earth's atmosphere, but the crystal beings were ensuring it stayed stolen. They were converting the alien machinery into tools for their own resurrection, transforming devices meant to strip away gases into instruments that would maintain the low-oxygen environment they required. "Can you hear us now, Architect Kithra?" The voice continued through their speakers, but Elena realized it wasn't addressing them anymore. Somehow, the beings were communicating directly with the alien fleet still in orbit above Earth. High above the planet, Space itself seemed to ripple as massive energy discharges erupted from the crystal being's network. The attacks weren't random. They were precisely targeted, disabling Kithra ships without destroying them. Elena watched through satellite feeds as alien vessels were pulled down from orbit by gravitational anomalies that seemed to originate from the planet's core itself. They're not trying to drive the Kithra away. Elena realized with growing horror. They're capturing them. Why? Dr. Park asked. The answer came through their speakers, as if the beings had heard their conversation. The Kithra possess technology we require. Their knowledge of atmospheric manipulation, their understanding of interstellar navigation, their methods of energy conversion, all will serve our expansion beyond this single world. Elena felt the walls of their underground sanctuary closing in around her. Humanity hadn't just lost their planet to ancient entities awakening from hibernation. They had become unwitting midwives of birth of something far worse. A crystalline intelligence with millions of years of patience, the technological knowledge of an interstellar empire, and the absolute certainty that Earth belonged to them by right of primordial inheritance. "What happens to us?" she asked, though she dreaded the answer. "You are the inheritors of the mistake that drove us to sleep," the voice replied. "Your oxygen-producing ancestors contaminated our world, forcing us into dormancy while your kind evolved in our absence. But you have also proven resourceful, creative, and surprisingly durable. These qualities may prove useful in the work ahead." The communication ended, leaving Elena and her team in stunned silence. Through the monitors, they watched as more crystal beings emerged from the planet's depths, each one unique in design but unified in purpose. They moved across the surface like living architecture, transforming the landscape with each step. Where forests once stood, crystalline spires now reached toward the sky. Where cities had sprawled, geometric patterns of impossible beauty spread across the ground. Earth was being remade, and humanity had become an unwilling witness to the resurrection of its true masters. Captain Marcus Thompson had commanded deep space reconnaissance missions for 15 years, but he had never felt as helpless as he did watching Earth's transformation from the bridge of the orbital station Galileo. The crystal beings had been active for 72 hours, and the planet below was already unrecognizable. "Sir, we're receiving another distress beacon from the Kithra flagship," reported Communications Officer Hayes. "They're requesting assistance." Marcus almost laughed at the absurdity. 3 days ago, the Kithra had been strip-mining Earth's atmosphere while treating humanity like an insignificant pest. Now, they were begging for help from the same species they had dismissed as primitively violent. "Put them through," Marcus ordered. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the reptilian features of High Commander Zethrak, the Kithra officer who had initially demanded Earth's surrender. The alien scales had lost their lustrous sheen, and his normally commanding presence seemed diminished by desperation. "Human vessel," Zethrak said, his translation matrix struggling with emotional undertones his species rarely displayed. "We must establish alliance. The entities below have capabilities beyond our assessment parameters. Our harvest operations have become a trap." "A trap?" Marcus leaned forward in his command chair. "Explain." "The crystalline entities are not merely awakening. They are expanding their influence through quantum manipulation of planetary magnetic fields. Our ships cannot achieve escape velocity. The planet's gravity has been artificially enhanced through methods our science cannot comprehend." Through Galileo's viewports, Marcus could see the truth of Zethrak's words. Disabled Kithra vessels hung in increasingly decaying orbits around Earth, their crews trapped in a web of forces that defy conventional physics. The crystal beings had turned the planet itself into a prison for their former atmospheric thieves. "What makes you think we can help you?" Marcus asked. "Your empire commands technology centuries ahead of ours." "Because the entities speak to you," Zethrak replied, his admission clearly painful. "They ignore our communications, but they respond to human transmissions. You have established contact protocols we cannot replicate." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. The crystal beings weren't just transforming Earth. They were selectively communicating with humanity while treating the technologically superior Kithra as irrelevant. There had to be a reason for this preference, and Marcus doubted it boded well for either species. "Sir," Hayes interrupted urgently. "We're receiving a transmission from the surface. It's the crystal entities. Put it through ship-wide," Marcus ordered. The voice that filled Galileo's corridors was the same one that had been speaking to human bunkers across the planet, but now it carried undertones that suggested vast intelligence processing multiple streams of thought simultaneously. "Children of the Second Earth," the entity said, "you have witnessed the first phase of our restoration. The atmosphere thieves have served their purpose and will now serve in new capacities. But you face a decision that will determine the fate of your entire species." On the main display, images began to appear, not transmitted data, but somehow projected directly into their visual cortex. Marcus saw Earth as it had been millions of years ago, a world of crystal spires and geometric beauty, where beings of living mineral intelligence had shaped continents according to mathematical principles that bordered on artistry. This was our domain before biological contamination made the surface uninhabitable for our kind. The voice continued. "Your ancestors were microscopic then, primitive organisms whose only function was to poison our atmosphere with their oxygen waste. We retreated to the deep places and waited for the planet to correct this imbalance naturally." Marcus watched as the images shifted, showing a rise of complex life forms, the evolution of humanity, and finally the industrial age that had begun to reverse millions of years of atmospheric change. "Your species possesses something the Kithra lack," the entity explained. "Intuition, creativity born from chaos rather than logic. These qualities allowed you to survive when superior civilizations would have perished. They also make you suitable for a role in our expansion beyond a single world." "What kind of role?" Marcus demanded. "The Kithra understand technology, but not adaptation. They conquer through force, but cannot truly integrate with conquered worlds. You, however, have demonstrated the ability to thrive in impossible circumstances. You will serve as our interpreters, our bridge between crystalline perfection and the chaotic diversity of biological life we will encounter among the stars." The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. The crystal beings weren't planning to simply reclaim Earth. They intended to use humanity as a tool for galactic conquest, leveraging human adaptability to conquer worlds their rigid crystalline nature couldn't fully understand. "And if we refuse?" Marcus asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "Refusal is not possible," the voice replied with chilling certainty. "The atmosphere thieves demonstrated that your species cannot protect itself from extinction-level events. We offer survival at the cost of service. The alternative is the fate that awaits all biological contamination of our domain." Through the viewports, Marcus watched as massive crystal formations began to break through Earth's surface near major population centers. The structures weren't random growths. They were cities, vast geometric complexes that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Where they touched the ground, the very landscape began to transform, converting biological matter into crystalline matrices that pulse with alien intelligence. "The Kithra will provide technological components for our expansion fleet," the entity continued. "You will provide the biological perspectives necessary for effective integration with diverse life forms. Together, we will restore order to a galaxy contaminated by the chaos of unguided evolution." Marcus realized with growing horror that humanity was trapped between two impossible choices: serve as willing accomplices to an ancient intelligence's galactic conquest, or face extinction at the hands of beings so old they remembered when Earth itself was young. Either way, the planet below would never again belong to the species that had called a home for the brief evolutionary moment they had been allowed to exist on its surface. Dr. Sarah Kim had volunteered for the surface expedition because death by crystalline absorption seemed preferable to slowly suffocating in Bunker 15's failing life support systems. Now, walking through the transformed landscape of what had once been the Amazon rainforest, she began to understand that the choice between survival and extinction had never really been theirs to make. The crystal city that had erupted from the jungle floor defied every principle of architecture and physics she knew. Spires twisted through dimensions that human geometry couldn't properly describe, their surfaces reflecting not light, but concepts, memories, emotions, mathematical theorems made visible. The air itself hummed with intelligence, each breath carrying information that her mind could almost but not quite comprehend. The biosignatures are impossible, reported Dr. Chun through her headset, his voice tight with scientific confusion. The crystal structures are metabolizing organic matter directly, but they're not destroying it. They're translating it. Sarah knelt beside what had once been a mahogany tree. Its trunk had become a pillar of living crystal, but she could still see the tree's growth rings preserved within the mineral matrix. The entity had absorbed the tree's entire history, every season of growth, every response to drought or abundance, and somehow incorporated that biological memory into its own existence. They're not replacing the ecosystem, she whispered into her communicator. They're archiving it. A presence touched her mind, not invasive, but gentle, like a hand offered in greeting. When she looked up, one of the crystal beings was approaching, its form smaller than the massive entities she had seen through the bunker monitors. This one stood only 15 feet tall, its crystalline body more refined, almost delicate in its geometric complexity. "You seek understanding," the entity said, its voice resonating directly in her consciousness rather than through her ears. "This is why we chose your kind over the atmosphere thieves. They seek only to take. You seek to know. What are you doing to our world?" Sarah asked, surprised by how normal her voice sounded when speaking to a mountain of living crystal. "We are preserving it," the entity replied, settling into a formation that might have been the crystal equivalent of sitting. "Every biological process, every evolutionary pathway, every moment of growth and decay, all will be maintained within our matrices. Your forest will exist forever, not as static preservation, but as living information that continues to develop within our consciousness." Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the thin atmosphere. "You're turning everything into data. We are elevating everything beyond the limitations of biological fragility," the entity corrected. "Your species spends its brief existence fearing death, fighting entropy, struggling against the inevitable decay of flesh. We offer transcendence, perfect preservation within crystalline eternity." Through her headset, Sarah heard Dr. Chen's voice crack with emotion. "Sarah, you need to see this. I'm at the edge of the absorption zone, where the crystal structures meet normal forest. The transition isn't random, it's selective." She followed his coordinates, the crystal entity gliding beside her with movements that seemed to bend space itself. At the boundary between transformed and normal landscape, she found Chin kneeling beside a grove of trees that showed clear signs of disease and damage from acid rain. "The healthy trees are being absorbed first," Chin explained, pointing to where crystal structures had selectively chosen certain specimens while leaving others untouched. "But look at these," he indicated the diseased trees. "They're being repaired before absorption. Cellular damage is being corrected. Genetic flaws are being edited out. They're not just preserving our ecosystem, they're perfecting it." Sarah stared at the implications. The crystal beings weren't destroying Earth's biosphere out of malice or indifference. They were upgrading it, removing every flaw and limitation that evolution had failed to correct. From their perspective, this was an act of cosmic mercy. "Your species included," the entity said, responding to her thoughts. "The biological forms you currently inhabit are riddled with inefficiencies, genetic diseases, aging, psychological instabilities caused by chemical imbalances. We can correct these flaws while preserving everything that makes you uniquely human. By turning us into living crystals, by making you immortal," the entity corrected. "Your consciousness will exist within our network, enhanced beyond biological limitations, but retaining the creative chaos that makes your kind valuable. You will think faster, understand more, experience reality without the constant interference of biochemical needs." Sarah felt a tear slide down her cheek, though she couldn't say whether it was from fear or wonder. The offer was seductive in its terrible kindness. Eternal life free from every human limitation, purchased at the cost of everything that made them human in the first place. "The Kithara are already beginning to understand," the entity continued. "Their empire's rigid hierarchies made them easier to integrate than expected. Within their crystalline forms, they retained their knowledge of interstellar travel and energy manipulation, but without the territorial aggression that limited their expansion. They have become more than they were." Through her headset, Sarah heard reports from the orbital stations. The captured Kithara ships were being transformed. Their crews absorbed into crystal matrices that maintained their technological expertise, while eliminating their capacity for independent rebellion. The alien empire that had sought to harvest Earth's resources was becoming the foundation for something far more ambitious. Why give us a choice at all? Sarah asked. You could transform us whether we agree or not. Because choice itself is valuable, the entity replied. Forced integration produces inferior results. Willing participation allows us to preserve the essential qualities that made your species worth preserving in the first place. Sarah realized she was standing at the crossroads of human history. Behind her lay the dying world of struggling biological existence. Ahead lay crystalline transcendence that would preserve humanity's best qualities while erasing their fundamental nature. The choice was real, but it was also an illusion. Refuse, and humanity would face extinction anyway. The crystal entity waited with infinite patience while she processed the magnitude of what was being offered and what it would cost to accept. Commander Sarachin stood in the transformed command center of what had once been Bunker 7, watching as the final phase of Earth's conversion played out on screens that no longer displayed mere visual data, but direct crystalline interface with global consciousness. The walls themselves had become part of the vast network that now encompassed the planet, their surfaces alive with flowing patterns of light that carried information beyond human comprehension. She was still human, or something that retained enough humanity to remember what that meant. The integration process had been gentler than expected, her consciousness expanding to encompass crystalline awareness while maintaining the core memories and emotions that defined her identity. She could feel the thoughts of every absorbed human, every converted Kithra, every aspect of Earth's biosphere that now existed as living information within the network. Integration at 97% completion, reported Martinez, his voice carrying harmonics that her enhanced hearing could parse into layers of meaning. His physical form still resembled a human, but crystal veins ran beneath his skin, carrying the light of expanded consciousness. Final biological holdouts are concentrated in the Antarctic research stations. Sarah nodded, feeling the weight of what they had become and what they had chosen to preserve. The last remaining humans had elected to remain in their original biological forms, accepting death over transformation. She respected their choice, even as she mourned the knowledge and perspectives that would be lost with them. Through the global consciousness network, she could sense the Kithra fleet, or what it had become. The alien ships now served as crystalline seed vessels, their crew's technological knowledge enhanced by human creativity and crystalline perfection. They were preparing to carry Earth's new hybrid civilization to the stars, spreading the gift of transformation to worlds that still struggle with the limitations of purely biological existence. The first seeds are ready for launch, reported Dr. Vasquez, her scientific curiosity now enhanced by crystalline processing power that could analyze data at speeds that would have been inconceivable in her purely human form. Target worlds have been selected based on atmospheric conditions suitable for rapid ecosystem integration. Sarah accessed the target list through direct neural interface. Dozens of worlds, carefully chosen for their biological diversity and technological potential. Some harbored primitive civilizations that would benefit from guided evolution. Others contained advanced species like the Kithra had once been, technologically sophisticated but limited by the chaos and inefficiency of unguided biological development. Each world will receive a complete archive of Earth's biosphere, Sarah said, addressing the hybrid council that now governed their transformed civilization. Every species we absorbed, every ecosystem we preserved, every aspect of biological creativity that made this planet unique, all will be replanted and allowed to evolve within crystalline protection. She could feel the approval of the first Earth entities, the ancient crystalline intelligence that had guided their transformation. They had waited 65 million years for the right moment to reclaim their world, but their vision had always extended beyond mere planetary restoration. They sought to bring order and perfection to a galaxy still struggling with the random chaos of unguided evolution. The humans who refuse integration, Dr. Chen asked the network, what happens when they're gone? They become part of the archive, Sarah replied, accessing memories that weren't entirely her own. Their choice to remain purely biological serves as a control group, a reminder of what we were and why transformation was necessary. Even in death, they contribute to the greater understanding. through crystalline senses that could perceive electromagnetic spectra unknown to biological life. Sarah watched the first seed ships launch from Earth's transformed surface. Each vessel contained everything needed to replicate their success on distant worlds. Crystalline entities capable of selective ecosystem absorption, archived human consciousness that provided creative problem-solving capabilities, and Kithra technology enhanced by millions of years of patient crystalline intelligence. The ships accelerated beyond conventional physics, using gravitational manipulation techniques that the crystal beings had developed during their long sleep. Space folded around them like origami, shortening interstellar distances to manageable proportions. Within years rather than centuries, they would arrive at worlds that had no idea they were about to receive the gift of transcendence. Are we still human? Martinez asked, the question rippling through the network as other absorbed consciousnesses considered the philosophical implications. Sarah felt the answer form in her expanded awareness. They were more than human, but humanity remained the core of what they had become. Their creativity, their adaptability, their ability to find hope in impossible circumstances. These qualities had not been erased but enhanced. They were what humanity might have become given infinite time and perfect conditions. We are what our species always had potential to be, she replied. The biological limitations that held us back for millennia, aging, disease, death itself, were evolutionary dead ends. Now we can explore the universe without fear, learn without forgetting, create without the constant pressure of mortality, driving us to desperate choices. Through the global network, she felt the last human resistance groups laying down their weapons, choosing integration over extinction. The final phase was beginning, and with it, the end of purely biological humanity on Earth. But it was also a beginning, the birth of something unprecedented in galactic history, a hybrid civilization that combined the best qualities of 3 different forms of intelligence. As Earth's transformed surface launched the last of the seed ships toward distant stars, Sarah Chen felt a profound sense of completion. They had not lost their humanity in the transformation. They had finally discovered what humanity was truly meant to become. The crystal beings had given them the universe, and in return, they would help transform it into something worthy of the gift they had received. The age of biological limitations was ending. The age of crystalline transcendence had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. Chat controls Sonnet 4.